Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. The mindness at the mystery font. How now? How now? The question of immunity being asked for as it is patently about absolute power. It is a massive reality distortion to assert that a president needs the power to do great wrong with impunity in order to do good. The thing that opened the door to very real prosecution were very real crimes, many of which we know about, and some of which are being prosecuted right now. But there are lines, and it's important if they're crossed. And Donald Trump sowed insurrection. And he's done other things that were wrong. And he's also gone to sing with the people who bloodied and harmed and caused the deaths of Americans and smeared shit and blood in the nation's capital at the behest and call of someone who has held us all in an abusive relationship for 8 years. And it began with saying, "I will keep you in suspense." And that was a promise. And he did so on January 6th. And to admit that he must finally call people off and say, essentially, as much nothing as possible, but to say, go home. Eventually to say, it was terrible, but then really to eventually say, nothing was wrong. I have done nothing wrong. In this quiet, this relative quiet, when he's not just being allowed to talk for long periods of time, as if we're listening to a celebrity that we dearly want to listen to. Long periods of time, or really any time at all. Why? And if we were to listen, if we had enough silence, enough freedom from terroristic, stochastic attack upon our psyches, and essentially what looks like a Nazi attack in the form of Project 2025. That in and of itself is a massive blow to our emotional and individual well-being. Our national and our individual well-being is harmed by being under psychic, mental, stochastic terrorist, menacing, malicious, militaristic attack. And to be told by someone who attacked our country and cheated us, which is exactly what Donald Trump did. He cheated not just people he calls losers. He cheated his supporters, he cheated himself, he cheated everyone on earth, he cheated America for his own fucking conquest. Period. We all know the only reason he's not gone is because no one who matters has said no to him. It is cowardice in the face of someone following a mold of Stephen Miller. Call him M. And Steve Bannon. And Charlie Kirk. And other white fire Ku Klux Klan Nazi terrorists. We are talking about Project 2025. We are talking about declared conspiracy against the United States of America. And it began with him telling us he would keep us in suspense, and he did. And then he said he did nothing wrong. And then he said, I'm running. And instead of our neighbors who saw what happened at our house and heard the screams and heard us talk about getting a restraining order, those neighbors came back. And our neighbors next door, CNN, and our other neighbors, Fox News, and our other neighbors looked at us and said, actually, the guy banging on your door again, who you are shrieking at and wondering why he's here, why isn't the restraining order going through? Maybe he means well. Maybe you're kind of lucky. He really seems to care about you. Maybe he's here to make an honest woman out of you. It's like he's screaming as he bangs through the glass, saying, I'm going to make us great again, baby. We're dealing with a malicious, dark triad predator, a man who is violent and wants to conquer and will not go away unless we create boundaries of steel to say no. And those may have ultimately any kinds of components. But it begins with no. It begins with someone saying no. No, you don't come onto this program and talk to us as if this is a talk show when you have threatened members of our judiciary and when it looks like you have sleepers of the Ku Klux Klan on the Supreme Court. We need to be with you on some kind of footing that is appropriate to what you threaten, not just what you claim deference around. You're not a celebrity. No one who we're talking about is there as a celebrity. And we need to get better at seeing where we're misattributing deference as directed. immunity, as asked for by Donald Trump, is an attack on democracy. It is a literal attack to say that he will have the power of violence, even to do wrong, with impunity. We've been saying it for too long, saying strangely he wouldn't do that. It's truly odd. Who knows why we would think this, but it seems we think. He wouldn't do that. I fear he would do all the things we have failed to look directly at. I fear we're not seeing projections where they're plain. There are instances of shocking boundary violations, of calling the shot of, I'm going to walk across the room and grab your crotch. There's, I'm going to tell you a lie that's demonstrably false, and I'm going to make you swallow it. I'm going to make you watch as no one really bats an eye and says no to me as I do this, and we walk out the door and the press is left saying, but if it was the biggest crowd in the world, then why was there no record of it? If they have no numbers, how do you know it was the biggest crowd? Walk out the door. Story is Daddy Matty. Daddy Matty, press baddie, Daddy Matty. What? We have been pushed by a con artist from one item to another, when any one, if we simply drill down upon it, has the feces that he carries with him. We are dealing with someone using the election system against America and using the election system against judicial comeuppance for his actual crimes. He's dragging massive crimes that go back decades into a presidential race. What kind of maniac takes one significant albatross? What kind of maniac takes many? What kind of maniac attacks America, ourselves, and then says, I didn't do that. By the way, I did nothing wrong. All the stuff that I did, I mean, I did it, but it wasn't wrong. Let's sing a big song. And somehow when I say I'm coming back and I did nothing wrong and I'm going to pardon these people, where are we missing that we're seeing a quid pro quo and a promise that is a confession? It is mens rea to simply finish insurrection. It is taking over for white supremacist patriarchal terror. Controlling a corporate clench upon farming human history in a way that we can't really turn back from. We're going to demolish. Society is not just what's been built, it's what society is building. And we can do decimating damage to myriads of beautiful possibilities for humanity if we don't pay attention to how people screaming against DEI have just found a new way to say the N-word. We are looking at white supremacist, patriarchal terrorism. Yes, Biden is touched by it too, but we're not looking for which quarterback we like. We know which quarterback hasn't given himself to the fucking Nazis and hasn't proclaimed it. We know which person didn't put a whole page ad into the New York Times calling for people to hate young black men and call for their deaths and not apologize once they were proven innocent. What kind of person has such venom that they make terroristic, dominating display of being the poison against people? The poison. And then to say, oh, but I didn't mean in this way, I just mean to not apologize for any of it. None of it was wrong. How many people he has left behind, how many people he has not paid and gutted by simply dragging their business out of their lives. But we're talking about claiming immunity for really what should prompt Biden to consider assassinating Trump already. That's the kind of playing field opened up, not by someone prosecuting actual crimes of a president or former disgraced president as with Trump, but someone venturing purely into the territory of falsehood and promotion for winning as much conquest as possible to simply sow absolute power. You don't tell people that you care about veterans or about fallen heroes or soldiers missing in action, wounded veterans, people lost in memory that may not come back, or in trauma that may not let people out. You don't honor those people the way that Trump deals with virtually anyone in the military, as far as I can see. Showing such little regard for intelligence and commitment and experience and the application of knowledge between intensive study and discipline, personal regulation, and experience within maybe one or two or multiple, but deep experience that's amounted to survival amongst the best in some of the most specialized areas of things like the military or science or any part of human endeavor that we recognize helps us, that we're in touch with some reason for because we say it's going to help us. With everything at our fingertips, we're constantly running from a promotion storm that is gaslighting about its previous gaslight. But amidst the shocking boundary violations of terroristically assaulting or shaming or degrading people, or of saying that it's okay to do terrible things like grab people's crotches, showing us in behavior that it's okay to degrade people to their face by making fun of them, or to repeat over and over a story that's about degrading someone and degrading the office of the presidency or the United States by acting as if that's respectable and that's acceptable and that's how you treat the office that he's also trying to milk deference of. And all along, when he says that our neighbors are sending us rapists, this convicted rapist telling us again now, in recent comments in recent months, saying essentially the same thing again. This known sexual predator, this person who would host beauty pageants to look in upon the green rooms of young girls and say, oh, you're not doing anything wrong being here with me. He wouldn't do that. We need to understand it's not about liking or not liking. He wouldn't do that, has never been on the table. He would do exactly what he's asking for. And he wouldn't ask the authority to do wrong without punishment unless he wanted to do anything he wanted forever. You don't ask to be dictator for a day. You definitely don't do it if you're looking for power. You definitely don't do it if you're looking for the power of a country that is supposedly the greatest on earth or the most powerful. And having launched an attack on that place and being essentially looked at for espionage against this country and for insurrection. And now, are we not looking at a conspiracy that is Project 2025, a declared, premeditated, declared attack that is in fact illegal? It is a criminal, white supremacist, patriarchal terrorist attack. Is that not what we're looking at? And that is what we're looking to organize, to call to therapy and to the table of conversation, or to some kind of coming together, at least towards the union of, let us become minds who can talk to one another and recover what has been stolen, the ability for understanding and withstanding reproach. Because it's virtually been stolen by us, from us. From us, by us. It's virtually gone. Our ability to weather and not transmit to our minds as soon as someone says, you can't say that. Well, like, it's not censorship to say, don't say that. It's also okay to keep talking. There's more flexibility, and yet we also need to learn about not menacing one another. Like, the bandwidth of Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be, I will simply terrorize, is simply, that kind of seems the whole picnic with Marjorie, is that it is fostering a total loss of executive function and fight or flight to be easily kowtowed, pointed in the direction of who to harm, to be hoodwinked. We're looking at working to disable our ability to perceive what's real. He wouldn't do that. If he wouldn't do that, why did he say he did nothing wrong? If he wouldn't do that, why did he record a song with people who followed his orders of stochastic terror to attack the country, to let him stay and keep us in a cacophony of that echo, and continued to lie and foster a lie? How is it, if the fraud was so obvious and happening all over, how is it that there is no proof? That all of the things brought forward to say, I have something, that dozens of these have come up with nothing that would have changed the 2020 election? How is it that total absence of all of the massive proof that's supposed to have existed is proof that it exists somewhere? How is the opposite of reality proof of a hidden reality? This is the Eucharist of Donald Trump. The Eucharist of Donald Trump is to swallow deep, degrading, defiling insults to our character and our mind. Abuses including shapes that are so twistedly unbelievable and wretched and harmful even to us, but yet we swallow it. Like, here's your kid's new lunchbox with the Donald Trump logo on it, and the inside capsule is made of poop. Enjoy. What? Well, but it's me. Like, anything that he would do would somehow be transcended, trumped by that it's him. I can say terrible things about someone. I can interrupt a press conference about a health issue to speculate about stuff I don't know anything about. And it will terrify people. And I will be advised about that. And I will do it again and again and again. Why would he do that? Well, he doesn't understand. He's just trying to know. He wouldn't do any of those things for the worst possible purpose, or within that to grab out the worst possible precedent. You don't argue that you have to be able to kill a person in order to perform an operation on them. You don't suddenly declare that this is the new reality, that, well, doctors will not be able to operate on patients unless we're able to do whatever we want to them. We obviously we wouldn't, but we have to have that right. That's a terroristic insanity. This is the Eucharist. It is the swallowing of a massive distortion so fucked up because he's positioning himself as a deity figure, because he's positioning himself as a returned Elvis, as a Jesus has become John Wayne's baby or something. But whatever golden fleecely figure he's painting himself into being in this little made-for-movie TV reality, this is what I would draw together. That this person talked about at one point being called out for tax loopholes, for using tax code and doing things that really other people didn't have access to, and that actually were pretty shady, in fact pretty exploitive, and he was making a lot of money by doing this stuff. And he was called out about that. And his response was, well, if they don't like that I'm doing this, like, I'm smart to do this. If they don't like that I'm doing this, why don't they get rid of it? And at that time, his point in part, I mean, I think he still was bluffing on this, but his point in part was to say why they're not getting rid of this is because they do the same thing. They use these tax loopholes. They want the same thing. They don't want to take it out. So he's being disingenuous. But really, this is a truism. Why, there's something in there about Trump saying, if you don't like that I use this tax loophole, like, until you take it away, I'm smart to use it. Figure it out. What do you want to do? Because I'm not dumb. You have this loophole waiting here. I can save money. I'm not an idiot. Change it. So I want to park that there. That essentially, I think, I would assert that that's real. And this.
The reason you didn't is that all your friends take this. Never will change. We're getting rid of carried interest provisions. I'm lowering taxes, actually, because I think it's so important for corporations, because we have corporations leaving, massive corporations and little ones. Little ones can't form. We're getting rid of complaining about so many different things over the years. Oh, we should have done this. But she's been there for 30 years. She's been doing this stuff. She never changed, and she never will change. She never will change. We're getting rid of carried interest provisions. I'm lowering taxes, actually, because I think it's so important for corporations, because we have corporations leaving, massive corporations and little ones. Little ones can't form. We're getting rid of regulations, which goes hand in hand with the lowering of the taxes. But we're bringing the tax rate down from 35% to 15%. We're cutting taxes for the middle class, and I will tell you, we are cutting them big league.
Good God, big league. Big league, big league, big league. Big league. Big league. Yeah, he just goes on and on and on. And again, people not just knowing how to say no to him. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. It's pathetic. But where do we go here?
Lower in the world. And I think it's so important, one of the most important things we can do. But she is raising everybody's taxes massively.
Now,
Highest in the world. Catastrophe. We're down at 1%. It's a disaster for the country. But the senator, she complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Well, why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator?
So this is reasonable. I mean, I think that's real. Why not change it? But if this is the idea that Donald Trump is saying, I'm a reasonable person, you know, I'm just being smart, I'm a shrewd businessman, I'm very smart. By the way, a number of things are proved entirely false here, like he mentions that he says that he pays lots of taxes and such, which has been proved false by records, I believe, released, or I think taken by court, finally. So there's a lot here that are just revelations to watch how many lies have been documented by him. And certainly there are lies by Clinton as well. But a pattern to sow actual tyranny began here in this first election cycle that he was in. And it was during this campaign that he promised to keep us in suspense. And we have essentially been, more or less. Even though he was booted out, kept from seizing power, which is what he definitely tried to do. And claims wasn't wrong. It's ridiculous. But at any rate, where are we here? We've heard this idea. If I'm so bad to do this, then why don't you just change the rule? Because I will follow the rules. Okay, well, what about in a scenario when there is not somebody on the other side, when there's no other precedent? There's just somebody who has done a massive amount of harm and numerous crimes, and some of them are being prosecuted. But essentially, no one has ever come up against this essentially before, other than Nixon in any way, but they didn't go for absolute immunity. Absolute immunity and the power to do wrong, like to task people to do extrajudicial killings, assassinations, and wet work. Just putting that into, that's part of his writ. That's categorically tyranny. He's asking for the right to do anything. He's asking for the right to make sheets out of people. We will never know. We will never know so many things, but it will be so much worse. We can't uncover and heal everything that's ever been done wrong, but we can actually move forward with processing our American apartheid day by day and being kinder to one another and getting better at realizing this place in humanity. and building, fostering, and updating and bettering of democracy. We don't have to submit. And I think right now we are being coerced to submit to the idea that Trump's tyranny and Project 2025 is coming or else. And we need to wake up. Because if indeed this is the person telling us, if you don't like that I'm using this tax loophole, close it, how does it work exactly? That this is also the person
And extort him with the threat of wrongful persecution, not function as his political opponents will blackmail and extort presidential immunity. The president cannot function as the court will address the historic question of presidential immunity. Without presidential immunity, the president cannot function as his political opponents will blackmail and extort him with the threat of wrongful persecution.
This is patently corrupt. And again, we can't keep watching this unfold and saying, well, he wouldn't do that. Limited immunity, as has existed in some sense, in some cases, this is far beyond anything like that. And what, pray tell, is the reason why he's saying suddenly, he's talking as if this has always been a thing? The crimes that he's being prosecuted for are not all of the crimes we know about. But any one of them is really reason for someone to just not even run, because it tarnishes and brings just rotten shadow and disruption upon America. To say that, I mean, it's incredible, the field of reality distortion. It is literally simply a spell. It is simply a spell of constant feeding of someone who is just continuing to keep up his story. Because people who have given so much want to keep believing. People who have swallowed an enormous thing that they couldn't get their throat around and hurt, and changed their body or their mind or their relationship with the world or their family. Some huge lie or hate-filled pattern of speaking and thinking that you're turning it on everybody. Swallowing huge, aggressive shapes of hatred or lies that you're not willing to interrogate, and turning that against the world. This is the person who is saying, if we don't like him using a tax loophole, we should get rid of the loophole. If we don't like him using that tax loophole, he's a reasonable guy. So why the fuck is he talking about immunity to do even very bad things, he says. This is how a serial killer talks. This is how a corrupt individual sows power. Not to win, but to conquer. Not with us, us. To conquer us. It's not a joke. It's not funny. He's using that while all of us are in an abusive relationship with him, not all of us yet realize it. He will use that as long as possible. He will stay entrenched with reality distortions because as tired as we can see him becoming here, as decrepit as he is becoming, and as emaciated as even his promotion engine is, I mean, look. Look at that face. Without the noise running and running and running, this man said to you, when asked if he would leave when it was time, he said, "I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense." That's a wild, that's a threat. We shouldn't have let that fly. We shouldn't have let him go forward as a candidate without clarifying that. We shouldn't have let him leave the stage under his own power, if not within 2 minutes. Leave the stage now and have a debrief with the Secret Service, or we'll simply lock down the stage. You don't threaten the United States. You don't try to coerce and turn the handshake your way. You don't try to yank the United States when you shake the United States' hand in front of the world to say, "I have absolute authority," and get away with it. Unless we're not prepared for that. But why would we not recognize it's happening? Why would we not recognize it the first time? Why would we not recognize it in 2020? Why would we not recognize it after that attack? I mean, by all rights, singing and even leaking, singing a song with these convicted traitors should have been grounds to put him in jail. And it is the cowardice of people to not confront these kinds of basic things that largely has us where we are. People wanting to ride the coattails of a monster because they're going somewhere. But I'm not really sure how we will survive as anything like a democracy. I'm not sure how we'll have any way to actually take care of our habitat and try to steward us from ocean collapse. We have a lot of things to do and we can't really be distracted from that stuff by fascist corporate takeover and coercion of a police state into being. It is really, really, really anti-American and anti-human. And we can't accept it. For certain, whoever it is, if they're arguing for the right to grab your crotch because they're a celebrity, they're saying that for a reason. He wouldn't ask for or demand or say, I took those documents and I should still have them because I have absolute authority. Unless he wants to tell us that he thinks he has absolute authority, and to be given that, to have someone nod or not say, no, you don't. Sit the fuck down. How dare you? Are you drunk? What's wrong with you? Are you serious? Do you want us to put that down? Do you know that that's an attack? We are so far into a distorted reality based on people's inability to say no to this person.
Court will address the historic question of presidential immunity. Without presidential immunity, the president cannot function, as his political opponents will blackmail and extort him with the threat of wrongful persecution.
Based on what? Because we haven't had any wrongful prosecution. So based on what evidence are you saying that? And really, any honorable person, if they wanted to help the United States, would deal with their own fucking bullshit first. If you have done something dumb and you are bringing an albatross with you, get the fuck out of the way. Get the fuck off of this screen. You are a problem for us. There are all kinds of ways in which he saddles people with him, or takes being saddled with this him and flips it to say that he's doing it all for us, when this is only about evading accountability for high crimes. He's trying to outrun debt and prosecution for terroristic assault on America. He attacked the United States. And he's trying to outrun that and grab as many billions of dollars as possible. Why would he ask for the right to do anything, even bad things? Why would he ask for the right to break the presidency? Why would he ask for the right to be Trump the Terrible? There would be no reason. It would be totally insane. Unless there was a massive pattern of demonstrable falsehoods. And if this person who had said,
My question is, what specific tax provisions will you change to ensure the wealthiest Americans pay their fair share in taxes?
Mr. Trump, you have 2 minutes.
Well, one thing I do is get rid of carried interest. One of the greatest provisions for people like me, to be honest with you. I give up a lot when I run because I knock out the tax code.
Poor
And she
baby.
could have done this years ago, by the way. She was a United States senator. She complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Well, why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator?
So if you can play by the rules and you just, are going to take advantage of what you can, why do you want impunity from atrocities or anything slightly less atrocious? Why do you want the ability to be Jeffrey Dahmer in charge of America?
Will address the historic question of presidential immunity. Without presidential immunity, the president cannot function, as his political opponents will blackmail and extort him with the threat of wrongful persecution at every turn, including when he leaves office. They're going to say, you don't give us this, whether it's for taxes or military or anything, we're going to go get you because we're allowed to now, because you wouldn't have immunity. We're going to get you after you leave office.
The kind of immunity that has existed, the kinds of deference and room to operate that has always existed until Trump positioned himself as above everything. This man who amends maps with Sharpies based on what he wishes were true, and stuffs documents down toilets, and removes documents that literally can make or break the safety of people's lives. He will just simply remove something from somewhere as if he can do that. Like on this, this was Memorial Day. His nonsense with that it's very likely that the documents that he's taken and held and some that are probably already just in the wind, it's likely that he's already had deadly impact. It's likely that things that he's already taken and that people have acted on have already killed American soldiers. Why would that not be the case? Why in the world would him taking the highest top secret, they shouldn't leave these double safes, they can't leave this room, he somehow steals documents like this and hangs on to them for months after being told, we've found you seem to have taken this, you can't have those things, nobody can have those things, you need to return them. But this isn't just a library card you're getting a reminder for every couple of weeks for 2 years. Like, you may as well have taken the nuclear football. Oh, I thought I'd just get to have, this is still mine, right? It's completely insane. But look, if he can play by the rules and wants us just to make the rules defined, why is he asking for no rules for only him, unless he wants to end humankind and just be whatever he is and do what he wants with us? We're in danger because of this dangerous individual. We are experiencing massive distortions in the field of reality. And we should be aware that the pernicious influence of M and the dedicated use of Darvo is at hand. We are experiencing massive distortions in the field of reality. And this is an episode of Mystery Font 42, Ope Intuit. If he was saying he's smart to use a tax loophole that we leave open, and we should close it if we don't like it, what are we supposed to take from him saying he wants to be free from punishment no matter what he does, with a declared Nazi conspiracy, a declared totalitarian dictatorship from Project 2025, working alongside what part of this are we not are we willing to ignore how much we're ignoring it? Because organizing to make sure that the people trying to do this to this country have adequate health care so that they don't actually try to start violence or do such decimating media attacks that we truly don't know what's happening. We are dealing with massive distortions in the field of reality, being spearheaded by Stephen Miller and Roger Stone and Donald Trump. What do we do in order to actually apprehend the shape of very sick and false individuals like Stephen Miller or Roger Stone, who is known to have called for the abduction or murder of Congressperson Swalwell, known sadistic, seditious murder plotter, Roger Stone, and the incredibly malicious white supremacist Stephen Miller. These are the kinds of people that Trump is gathering to do his wet work and his dirty work in daylight. Without punishment, we may not yet ever on humanity's earth seen the kind of havoc that will be unleashed. Because robots are coming online. And the thing about the falsehood is, when we're dealing with an algorithm, or a program, or a key in a lock and knowing that it's the right one, trust and building a world together, a union, a United States that bridges to foster what absolutely matters most for all of us, and how to get better at delivering that for everyone, rather than deifying and turning into a god and vaunting the absolute authority and perfect serenity of any whim of one person who has already spilled American blood. Why would Donald Trump call for this recognition of having absolute authority? Why would that be the least bit interesting to him? Why would he ever want that? Why would Donald Trump want absolute immunity and absolute authority? He suggests really that he himself should be assassinated by Biden. He suggests that essentially by proclaiming that he believes he should have the right to do that to someone else. And so he also confesses mens rea to want to do that. And isn't this kind of like someone saying, "Can I swear?" And it's kind of like, well, we can say no, but he's going to anyway. And the point is, well, if someone says, "Can I rip your pants off?" and you're like, "Ooh, actually no," are you going to say, well, like, where is there a boundary? And we have to realize his boundary with us was a long time ago. We have been and are continuing to be degraded and assaulted by him. And he still has, quite clearly, he still has his hands on our private parts. Our nation's private parts, our unmentionables, our delicate, compromising, vulnerable, for our eyes only areas, to be shared in confidence and trust and protected and not laughed at about, not made a joke of if something was done. Someone doesn't say, "Oh, I was right to have my hands all over that," and just to kind of keep that on my person, and that's I keep that in my bathroom now. I was right to do that because I just have absolute authority. I declassified that part of the body, that part of that person, or that part of that country. I just took all those compromising things and they're mine. There. This is what we're dealing with here. we're dealing with someone asserting the right that is indeed these folks and others. Why would you argue for something you believe the other person would erase you with? It makes sense if you're so confident that you can sow tyranny that you announce it as part of coercion. That is exactly what we're looking at. We are looking at coercion. We are looking at stochastic terrorism, menacing, and coercion. We don't have to accept being bullied or threatened. We don't have to submit. And it may feel like it's too late. But in fact, really, when we realize it, and when we realize we have the strength to do it, it's time to awake. It's time to be woke to see what we can do just to foster human kindness and, yes, the continuation of democratic elections. The 2024 election can allow us to have a chance to replace Joe Biden with a legitimate presidential candidate. There's no possibility to do that if Donald Trump wins the election. There is a possibility to replace Joe Biden with a legitimate presidential candidate, so long as we keep Project 2025 and Donald Trump away. There's not a Republican in the field who's untouched by MAGA, and they're essentially a Christian nationalist movement. They are Nazis. They need help. They need therapy. They don't need power. That's the wrong place for people overwhelmed with a sadistic love of violence and an addiction for punishment and for demonization of others. We really can't foster that. At any rate, it is this thought are we hearing the postulation that has been posed that a person who has told us he's smart, so he's going to use the system, and if we don't like something that he's doing, we should change it. How can we take anything that he's taking us with, anything that he's saying to us? Can he take us where he's going? Just wherever he's going because it's him saying it? Somehow does he show up and we again believe every word isn't a lie meant to sow a new scheme? That it isn't just simply perpetuating the same big lie or new series of big lies again? It feels like Lucy and the football. It feels like Lucy and the football. And he's going to give us a kick. Every time. Hey, we're going to get a kick. And on January 6th, we really were going to get a kick. And he almost tried to have his finger on it right there at the Capitol. But just about did as well. If he wants to play by the rules and wants us to hold him accountable, wants us to keep him honest, why would he ask for the freedom to be the devil? Why would he ask for immunity from acting like the devil and from consequences of havoc? That doesn't sound like a decent human being. It sounds like a dangerous person. And if there were a 900-page document published alongside somebody who didn't want to be associated with such planned malice, he would have made it clear by now. But that's not where we are. Charlie Kirk and Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon continue to be quite woven in. Joe Biden is not the quarterback I want for the team I want to vote for. But neither Trump's Ku Klux Klan team nor their Ku Klux Klan quarterback is of any interest to me. What they've promised alone to do, what Trump has promised alone to do to Palestinians is enough to let me know that he's quite rotten to the core. But certainly in every other venue, we see a decreased ability to know that any fact is being told to us as fact, that we are in any way being leveled with, that we can expect to be leveled with. We have to realize we have been incredibly abused. Someone who comes into our home and hurts one of our family and makes us take that as a new reality and just get used to that by moving on to hurting someone else or creating some crazy confusion and then another confusion and then attacking someone else. If we don't realize that we have always been on the run for 8 years and attribute it to the source, we might feel like we're the problem or like it's something else. But how is it anything in some sense but this? You are in an abusive relationship. Shocking boundary violations are one common grooming tactic of a narcissist or dark triad personality. If someone in your life points into a camera knowing you'll be looking at the view screen and pulls their finger like a trigger, looking into your eyes, saying, I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anyone, it is a good indicator of a bad situation. You are in an abusive relationship. Who has leveraged and climbed upon a fog of falsehood? Who has donned the falsehood? Who is the falsehood? How do we apprehend what's coming and help people agitated to extremism, to self-regulation, and healthy expression or exploration of ideas without harming communities of people? We are experiencing massive distortions in the field of reality, and shocking boundary violations are a constant that we have become used to, or that we have displaced from understanding as assaults and injuries, that telling us we will be kept in suspense is a shocking boundary violation. Telling us that our neighbors are sending us rapists is a shocking boundary violation. Telling us that he did nothing wrong by launching a stalking operation and stochastic terrorism of 2 loyal Georgia election workers who are lucky to be alive today, to say that he did nothing wrong, that is a degrading and defiling, unrealistic garbage statement. That is simply derogatory to fact, and to pose that his followers have to eat such garbage as their Eucharist, that any lie, or to say in the face of all of the horrible things that he has done, that not one of those is wrong. That is an incredible toxin to feed to your followers, that they need to take in this massive lie. That the more time goes on and none of the supposedly ubiquitous proof of 2020 fraud by anyone but him, that the more time that goes by without any proof is somehow proof that there was proof everywhere. It is perfect cult mindfuck. To make someone swallow a pill so embarrassing that they will never regurgitate it. That they will never try to get it back up, because they will never even think, oh my God, I have been hoodwinked. I have swallowed someone's kitchen sink, and I don't look dumb with this in my throat at all. To so pervert someone that you isolate them from their families with violent conspiracy theories that are unfounded or provable as false, or simply out of the box, batshit crazy, meant to be a rite of passage. The shocking boundary violation of you will believe this insanity and take it on my account as if I'm just God. We are at our Sudetenland moment. And we have to stop appeasement. We have to recognize a shocking boundary violation and someone saying, I get to do this. I have absolute authority. In fact, I have immunity from anything. In fact, give me the right to do anything. I can't do anything unless I get to do anything and not hear a fucking word about it. He's telling us he will sow decimation. This is not about the quarterbacks of the teams. This is about a team that is going to continue democratic elections, and a team that has been taken over by MAGA, which is essentially a Christian nationalist Nazi affair. It is compromised. And we will never see the ability to know what is in our food, or to protect our lungs or our habitat again, likely, if we allow the bedrock institutions that hold systems together, just like deciding to end elections, or de facto doing so, we pull apart not just a tiny fiber, but the ability to make positive change that isn't massive collapse. We have to recognize we have been abused. And someone putting their hand into your pants all the way around your Sudetenland and grabbing you and saying, I'm not going to take any more than this, but this is mine. I've already declassified it. I didn't tell you before I grabbed it because it's been declassified for a long time and you didn't really need to know if you didn't already know. I thought you probably would know, but Now I know that you know that you know that this belongs to me. That someone saying something so ridiculous and shocking and not realizing they've misstepped, but in fact leaning into the idea that they're taking over. And the program ends and they go home and they'll be on programs tomorrow. Wait, did they just say that and now it's time for Matlock? This is actually happening. The resistance and organizing for the freedom of humanity needs to be finding footing. Project 2025 will decimate our habitat and will end any prospect of following through on anything good other than cozy vacation on type of violent occupation. We actually have the codec. We have the codec in equity and indeed administering it consistent with diversity and equity and inclusion, as is the case with humanity. As Jesus taught us, as Sesame Street taught us, as Mr. Rogers taught us, that empathy and knowing how to self-regulate and how to understand people who are different than us, and yet part of our community and part of our same human fabric, that those are good skills and skills to foster. We need to realize that some of the worst elements in society have stolen into government. And we are in danger of white supremacist, patriarchal, terrorist takeover abjectly. When someone tells you they want absolute authority, something that would give them power forever, and it just happens to be that, well, they're looking to come into power, do we need to look at the refrain? He wouldn't do that, right? When he says he wants the ability to do even really bad things, he wouldn't do that, right? Why is he asserting the right to do that if he wouldn't do that? Why is he telling us that there were 100,000 people and then 107,000 people somewhere where there were about 15,000? Why did he tell us that his crowd was larger than Obama's for their inaugurations? What's the point of telling us that a provable, massive falsehood is the truth? What's the point of overwhelming and coercing us to believe a lie? I mean, is there any possible good reason? Even if there were a good reason, wouldn't it most likely be a terrible reason?
I made a
Can
speech.
we say he wouldn't do that?
The field was It looked like a million and a half people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
Isn't the reason to use your ability and your power to coerce and to announce a lie and fail to react or to deal with, to simply overwhelm with silence and gaslight the reaction such that you commit a massive lie into the air and broadcast that and then act as if it was the truth and go on about your day. And people would have to wrestle you to the ground to get you to change your mind about saying that that's the truth, while in fact it's provable that you created a hoax. What's the point of doing that? What's the point of doing that with his first press conference by the first press secretary? The only reason to coerce people to believe a lie is to have the ability to coerce people to believe a lie and not challenge it. It is creating the ability to make people submit for the purpose of having the ability to make people submit. And demonstration of the ability is not a joyride. He made us submit to calling a normal warranted search a raid of Mar-a-Lago when there's never been a raid of Mar-a-Lago. He coerced us into submitting. News organizations just call it that. And that's false. It should have been seen as an act of war for him to declare he's running for office, while the 14th Amendment and other basic structures stand in his way, including things like honor, and that he fucking cheated, and that he fucking tried to suspend democracy. We shouldn't be at a point of having a conversation about him running for office at all. He shouldn't have come back. And we shouldn't have been unable to say no. Why, indeed? Why lie? Why coerce someone? Why coerce a body of people, a nation, to accept a demonstrable falsehood? So you can.
I made a speech. I looked out. The field was, it looked like a million and a half people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
The new White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, gave his first press briefing. He was also highly critical of some media organisations of the way he felt they had misrepresented the number of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
It does not excuse, and you did not answer the question. I did answer
No,
your
you
question.
did not. You did
Yes,
not
I
answer
did.
the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office
No,
on
it
day
doesn't.
one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
This was the largest ever. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
In front of that podium to utter a provable falsehood. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Beware those who would speak false. Beware the falsehood.
I made a speech. I looked out. The field it looked like 1.5 million people.
Beware those coercing that they will do whatever they want. It's time to help Project 2025 to therapy and legal accountability, because it is an illegal it is quite clearly an illegal Nazi conspiracy. Project 2025 is an illegal conspiracy. Good gray array. It seems that we may be able to trust some sense other than sight to know the falsehood, to see them coming. I think it's possible, it just might be the case, that hate and its stench can be aid to thwarting it. Good gray. Well, think on it. How indeed can one asking for the power to do genocide be good? How for one not just asking for the power to do one wrong? I'm not excited that there are huge wrongs happening with Joe Biden. I'm not happy with tolerance for harm. But I'm not voting for a quarterback. I'm voting for the ability to replace that quarterback that I am not a huge fan of with someone who's not part of a Nazi attack. Donald Trump is not a safe person. Stephen Miller is not a safe person. Roger Stone is not a safe person. But we're dealing with these kinds of purveyors of Darvo, massive distortions in the field of reality. He said he was smart to cheat, but we should keep him honest. Now he says he wants Sanctioned to slaughter and imprison and do wrong. Absolute immunity is absolute power. No one asks for that to do good. To suggest one has absolute immunity is entirely disqualifying. I think it would be good to read something about January 6th. To read just a simple bit of verse. think this is a good time for that. It's a decent way to draw this to a close, this broadcast at this point. And almost there. Almost there. We'll find it. Here we are. All right. Well, let's keep in mind Donald Trump, Roger Stone, and Stephen Miller are at large. They remain at large. And that we have been telling ourselves for a while he wouldn't do that. But if he wouldn't do that, and he wants to follow the rules and is happy to be kept honest, why is he asking for the ability to lie and commit mass murder and face no consequences? Why would someone ask for the ability to be a supervillain unless they want to conduct conquest of supervillainy? He pooped in the soup. Why would we allow him to come back and interview for the chef job? Why would he ask for the right to poop in the soup in order to be chef? Doesn't it sound like maybe he did poop in the soup the first time and he's no longer just saying, well, if he did, we would have liked it? In fact, he's saying he wants to give Michelin stars to all the people who lost their jobs and bring them back and put them back on the line. In fact, he's looking for a whole battalion of people ready to cook his recipe. So, of January 6th, let's look at it. What if one swore with crossed fingers the oath to hold watch to cross rules they'd betray? What if I did not want to cause a panic, only meant that today is not the day? What if when told, sir, you must do your duty, he hears nature's call for a record real beauty? He dumped on that watch just where he made it fall. To what did his crossed finger oath swear at all? To what did his crossed finger oath swear at all? To what did his crossed finger oath swear at all? You see, we haven't had to search high and low. This hasn't been a witch hunt. We know who did these things. We know that it was the person who asked for the watch who in fact has never been able to handle the truth, doesn't have the willingness or the stones to handle the truth. Because when you ask to hold the watch, to be the one who presides, You shouldn't be someone who says, I'll keep you in suspense. When we say, well, if we give you the watch, will you give it back when the time comes? We shouldn't have accepted someone saying, I'll tell you at the time, I'll keep you in suspense. But we did, and then he did literally hold us on the fence and said, in fact, I'm not going, I'm staying, I'm telling you I'm betraying, but it's not that, I'm just saying. He couldn't handle the truth. He couldn't handle a reality that was different than he wanted, or that would remove power. What if one swore with crossed fingers the oath to hold watch to cross rules they'd betray? What if I did not want to cause a panic only meant that today is not the day? What if, when told, sir, you must do your duty, he hears nature's call for a record, real beauty? He dumped on that watch just where he made it fall. To what did his crossed finger oath swear at all? And if it meant anything, why did he later say it didn't include support for the Constitution? Why is he arguing after the fact about how he crossed his fingers, in what way? Why is he unable to agree to the terms of service of the presidency? What became of the watch you promised to hold, to be the one to hold? What became of the watch that you stole, Donald Trump, and shat on? You broke your oath and you broke the watch. What happened to the watch? And since you say you're coming back to take the watch again, what the fuck are you talking about? What happened to the watch last time? There, mister? Why the fuck would we let you come back? What happened to the watch last time? This is a watch hunt.